So Ron Doe Williams, thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you, Glenn. How you doing?
Good, man. DoTV, DoTV Network, Buzzer Builder, you know, all sorts of platforms, different sites and platforms and labels going on. So Ron Doe Williams, tell me a little bit more about who you are, what you do, what you've been up to.
Well, I'm Ron Doe Williams. Of course, I'm in entertainment for over 20 years. Build Your Buzz is one of our flagship sites I created about 9 years ago. It's a magazine. It's a website where artists, we put their videos up, we put their mixtapes up. We give them Artists of the Week, we rate them. Models come, they ask us to promote their pictures and different things of that nature. That's just one of the facets of what I have. The other one is Buzz Your Brand. It's a site that we do marketing. We build websites and apps and different things of that nature. And yeah, that's it right there. Build Your Buzz. You can come see the website, everything. Yeah.
Oh, I see what you did. Very cool. I'm kind of fascinated with the wording and like the labels that people come up. Build Your Buzz, but it's BU for build, and then the UR for your, and then the BUZZ for buzz.
Yes.
That's incredible. That's smart. I like that. So Build Your Buzz. Okay. Because I thought because I misread it as like Builder Buzz.
Yeah, no.
Okay, Build Your Buzz. I like it.
Yes. And the thumbprint is because, you know, we help people make a imprint on a label, a stamp.
Absolutely.
In the entertainment business. So, you know.
Very cool. Okay. Yeah, and you were also mentioning DoTV is something you just recently launched, right?
Yes, we're launching that in January, mid-January. It's going to be a streaming platform. We're going to be a standalone like Netflix and Hulu, more so like Hulu with a three-tier platforming. One with subscriber and commercial base is the first tier. The second tier would be as just subscriber base and no commercials. The third tier will be live TV subscribers and, you know, things of that nature. A lot of live streaming concerts and shows because I come from a music background of managing artists and doing concerts for 20 years. So.
Concerts, huh?
Yes.
Yeah, I've done a number of concerts and a number of live streaming concerts, live streaming events, things of that nature. So yeah, that's you know, just it's a headache just in and of itself. You know, streaming it and filming it. I can only imagine managing the entire, or organizing the entire concert in its entirety.
Well, yeah, it's you know, actually it is kind of hectic, and you know, when you're the go-to guy, every question, everything comes through you and run through you. But you know, after a while, it becomes, you know, when you have a thing and you're on a tour, it's like, hey, we get in here, we set this up, we can get in and get out quick, you know, and everybody can enjoy themselves. So, you know, it becomes a little, you know, once you get your system going, just like with everything else, you can roll right through it in every city.
Yeah. So with that in mind, how have you been impacted by the current state of affairs the last 9 months?
Ooh, man, let me tell you, man. I had 3 festivals that we were supposed to do because I own a festival company called, we haven't launched it yet. We were supposed to do it. We were supposed to launch May of last year with the racetracks, all the motor speedways around the country, where we produce festivals for them. And it's hard. It's been rough. We couldn't get anything. We had Bruno Mars as one of the artists. The Dixie Chicks is another artist. We had you know, various artists. Those festivals go from rock and roll to country to hip hop to, it's like on a level of Coachella.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, 3-day festivals, racetracks are big, and it holds a lot of people. So the time and effort that we started working on it a year before, and then when COVID hit, it's like things fell to the wayside, and it hurt us a lot, especially in the entertainment. So.
Yeah, I mean, and I was lucky. I had some experience, you know, in you know, live events. Did you start delving into live streaming the artists, live streaming? Because me and some colleagues started delving into live streaming DJs, live streaming bands, and things of that nature.
Yes, I did a couple of shows. We did one with New Edition. We did one with another rapper, 2 Chainz. I have 2 more coming up in January. One with all R&B artists, another one with rappers. In February, we have another one coming up with some pop and a pop artist and a Latin artist, reggaeton artist. So we have that show coming out. You know, we're going to start gearing everything more towards that because we had to change our whole scope of things because of COVID, and we don't know as to when everything will go back to being normal. And once it does go normal, we don't know how secure you'll be able to sell out another venue of 20,000 seats like the Garden, because the people will still be nervous.
Right.
And with the pandemic and all, if you know the history of pandemics, they usually take 3 to 5 years to clear everything and get everything out the system. So
of course,
people are going to be nervous for a while, even when things go back in. I still don't think that it's going to be the normal for 20,000 seats to be seen and different things of that nature, and Coachella and all the other festivals and concerts and things, events that will sell out automatically once things. And I know people want to go out, but there's going to be people that's still gun shy. So,
of course. Yeah. Yeah. And I think, you know, the biggest thing right now is to jump on, well, maybe 3-4 months ago, the biggest thing was to jump on just live remote streaming. Artists, you know, kind of their instruments jacked into a mixer, and then that mixer jacked into Zoom somehow. And the same goes for DJs and rappers, musicians, music producers, to just, and now even more so is going to be this whole hybrid, kind of a hybrid mix, right? Of maybe some people there, but now it's really going to be having to push to this live stream, you know, pay-per-view, going back to that kind of old school pay-per-view or subscription or pay, you know, kind of hybrid mix of, maybe there are some people there buying seats, but it's going to be 50% capacity. It's going to be 25% capacity. So it's going to have to be that hybrid mix of people watching it online, live streaming it.
Well, I definitely agree with that for 2 reasons, because adding a live stream component to your shows can cut you down in costs.
Oh yeah,
in both ways. And 2, for people now, you know, being a pandemic, it hurt the economy really bad. So a lot of people will spend their nights at home instead of going out. When you just think about it, I don't know if you're married or with a girlfriend or anything or whoever. You go out, and let's say you want to go to a concert. You buy the tickets, and I'm giving you a cheap price, $100 a piece, right? You got $100 a piece. That's $200 now. Your wife needs her hair done, and she needs an outfit. Because you know women.
If you're going out, you're and
they got to get their hair nails. So then you got another couple of $100 to spend. Then, you know, you want to probably get dinner. Dinner and drinks. So there's another couple of $100. So before you know it, you spend $600-700 just for that one show, when you can stay at home and watch the show and have a drink in your house and enjoy it for $40 or $50.
Right.
And in this economy right now, the way things are going, people will do that. And especially with the pandemic, all right, I'll spend $50, stay at home. We can have something to drink, cook, eat, and have a couple of friends over and watch the concert together.
Yeah. Yeah. And also it's cost efficient. I mean, if you have that rare couple that you're friends with, or, you know, a sister and her husband, you know, and so it's not like, you know, remember once in a while someone would buy that pay-per-view and have like 40 people over their house. It would be that, you know, the WrestleMania party or that Mike Tyson fight party.
Mike Tyson fight, yeah.
Well,
and
you know, they only got one purchase of that fight. But now with quarantine, and now with people, even after the vaccine, even after the floodgates, open, still people are going to be very cautious about how many people they have over, how congested and packed that party is going to be. So you're still going to have potentially more sales. You're not going to have 15 people over one house watching one purchase of that Tyson fight, of that WrestleMania. You're going to have only 2 people, 4 people, maybe 6 people over at that house watching that purchase, which means you're going to have still more purchases of said event.
Just look, Mike Tyson and Roy Jones. They did that, what you call it, for charity fight boxing match. They had 2 million people look at it. Yeah. Now Floyd is getting Floyd Mayweather to do it. Floyd Mayweather is getting ready to do it. You know, he's going to have 3 to 5 million people watching. So you know, you just take those things into consideration, and in the times that we're in, you know, movie theaters are closing down. So a lot more movies that people are making, they're going to start streaming into the old on-demand situations and pay-per-view situations to make money that way.
Oh yeah, especially what is it? Wonder Woman now is coming out in theaters and on HBO Max. You know, that's like the big super release coming out December 25th, Christmas Day.
Absolutely, and it's coming on both because a lot of movie theaters are closing down, and the movie theaters can't hold the capacity, so they won't fill up because you have to stay 6 feet apart. So you think in every row, before, if you had 20 people, now you have 5.
Mm-hmm.
So you lost 15 sales in each row.
Mm-hmm.
So you do those numbers, it's harder to sell and make the money back on the movie of a blockbuster movie to the capacity of Wonder Woman. Probably cost them anywhere from $5 to $10 million to make. So they have to add that on-demand effect and make those sales back up.
Oh yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Well, with that in mind, have you been back on set? When I say back on set, have you been back on site, on location? Have you been out there back at a show, at a hybrid show of some sort?
Yeah, we're shooting a couple of shows for DotyDoeTV network sporadically because, you know, when you're on set and everything now, you have to have the temperature taken and you have to have the people come in and clean when you're changing the sets. So it's a lot into it. It's more. And now that they're going back into shutdown, of course, you know, we're going back into lockdown, not shutdown. It's going to be a little harder like it was last year. So when you only allow 10 people in a place to do the work, and you're shooting a show of a talk show or of a sitcom or a movie, with camera crew and staff alone, you probably got 30 people. Mm-hmm. And then you have the actors and actresses and their managers and so forth and so on. It's hard. So you have to scale everything back tremendously just to fit these COVID-19 regulations.
Right. Yeah. COVID compliance officers. Yeah. I got certified as one myself. Definitely guilty of, you know, taking advantage of a new opportunity, but I mean, highly needed resource there, COVID compliance officer. But, you know, with that in mind, it's, I think right now what I'm seeing a lot is people thinking outside the box, and I always call it production hacks, people coming up with different production hacks. Okay, we can only have a third of the cast and a third of the crew. How do we do that now? How do we pull that off? How do we still tell the same story? Everybody always wants, you know, a $50 million blockbuster, you know, with all sorts of crazy actors and huge crew and dollies and jibs and helicopters and
blowing up everything, and gunfights, but it's hard now.
Yeah.
But one of my shows that I love to watch on Netflix, it's called Blacklist. Mm-hmm. And that's one of I love that show. Watching that show, their last episode went in through the pandemic. They had to change half of it into animated because they couldn't finish, the last full episode. So they did it in an animated version just to get the last episode finished.
So they animated Blacklist.
Yes, the last episode.
No shit.
They did half people and half animation, and I was like, wow, that's creativity. They came and they thought they had to get the season finished, and that was the last episode of the season to put in and put up. So I guess they came up with a creative way to do that, and it worked. And you're going to see a lot more creativity with that because people are going to have to start like 1 or 2 people in a room as opposed to doing some other things. It's going to be hard to shoot in confined spaces, especially with like talk shows and different things like that and sitcoms, because when you're on set and you have to be in close proximity of each other, and you have 3 or 4 cameras shoot, probably 4 or 5 cameras shoot, and you have 5 or 6 camera guys and APs and everybody on set, they're going to scale down tremendously, and they're going to start using bots. The studio that I was using, they invested in bots now. So you only need 1 real person holding the jib, and the rest they run by bot and just control room stuff off the camera. So it cut back and help. So instead of having 5 or 6 people on cameras, now you have 1 person on the camera and 1 person in the control room, and you make the other side for the other half of the control room for sound, and then there's a person there that run through the director, and they see from another screen to tell them what to go to and cut and this and that and the other. So they're trying to come up with creative ways. It's a little harder, and you know, they have to expand different things, but you know, they're trying, because you know, eventually, if you don't, as you see, like they're saying, New York is turning into a ghost town.
Mm-hmm.
No Broadway plays, which drove some of the Manhattan economy.
Oh yeah.
You think about all the hotels and everything that are losing money because of the Broadway is shut down. The actors, the actresses are losing money because of Broadway is shut down. The buildings, the rent, everything. We lose money across the board. Yeah. So they have to come in and think of more creative ways to save these cities. If New York can start to go under, some of these smaller towns and businesses, they're definitely going to die.
Right.
So,
yeah. And I mean, it's tricky to, I mean, of course, it's almost impossible to foresee such and such, but it's this quick reactionary kind of mindset to say, especially, let's say, you know, Blacklist. It's like a lot of folks, and I've come into contact with a lot of creatives, a lot of directors, producers that are just hard-headed and stubborn. And it's like, listen, you're telling the same story. We went from this live action show. We do it animated, all the same cast, and I'm assuming Blacklist, they had James Spader and everybody else,
yeah,
you know, voicing their
love that guy, yeah,
voicing their animated characters, right? And it's it's almost unheard of, but even more so, you know, even in the past, people have experimented like that, and which, if one person did it for just 5 minutes, it's like, why is that not a very open idea? Tarantino did it with Kill Bill Volume 1.
Yes, definitely.
I think it was what Oren Ishii's whole background, her whole background story was done in anime. Anime, yeah. And then they cut back to live action movie. And then, you know, there's all sorts of like other movies that went super goofy. I don't know if season 3 of Westworld was shot during pandemic, but it kind of seemed like it. I'm in the middle of season 3 of Westworld, and I see a lot of minimalist. There's a lot of minimalism in, you know, extras and cast that seems to be within the frame. And then they got really creative. Some guy got hit with a psychedelic drug, and they really just kind of played around with the music, and they kind of played around with his reaction to what was happening around him. And it was comedic to an extent, but it was also, it has, you know, much deeper meaning to what's going on in society. But it's almost as if people are willing to experiment and think outside the box and say, hey, listen, I had a story, you know, John Doe goes from A to Z within an hour and a half. We started somewhere with live action, you know, shooting on the Red or shooting on a Canon, shooting on a Sony, live action actors, and then, you know, shit hit the fan. And so, boom, this movie went from, and here's another example, that movie, The Imaginarium of something Parnassus or something. Heath Ledger passed away halfway through filming it.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
He had just finished Dark Knight. He started filming. He was halfway through filming this thing, and he passed away actually during production of this film. So they just had a bunch of other actors fill in, and each scene was a different actor playing that character. Yeah. And it fit because it was like this bizarre fantasy thing, and so I forget what I first saw, but the first thing that comes to my mind when it comes to like how Blacklist made up for the quarantine is Tarantino's Kill Bill Volume 1. Throw some animation in there, you know, and so just like that, just that one little spark of something else, that is kind of like the key to doing X, Y, and Z.
Well, a lot of things too. Animation takes time. One, it's not a simple process. One, doing the animation, that's one, and two, it's an animated movie can cost more actually than with actors.
It is possible.
You know, the time consuming and the cost. So it is one that a lot of people weren't prepared for. And two, the other one is that, you know, then you'll get all the animated houses booked up because there's but so many animation houses for production out.
Right.
So And a lot of them, most of them in hindsight are overseas. Most of the good ones come from Japan, or India. So when you look at a lot of animated characters and stuff, where they come from and do the history, where they're made is overseas. So it's going to be a little harder to start doing those things, but you have to. Nobody knew this pandemic was going to hit. Nobody knew this was coming. And no one was prepared for it. Right. No one. Like, I don't see anyone, any business or anything out here that is thriving besides streaming. Streaming didn't know it was coming, but the pandemic helped streaming all around, from music to TV to movies to whatever. Every streaming company, every company that's online doing sales, everything. Look at Amazon. They went from millions and millions and billions to trillions. And he became a trillionaire because of the pandemic.
Right.
So no one knew this was coming, but it took online to a whole nother level. So all the streaming and everything else to have to do with, because we couldn't go outside and couldn't do certain things. You know, your phone is a part of your hand, your tablet, those things. So people shop and people watch TV, they watch everything and they do everything. So that's the only industry that I see that profited from it, from the pandemic. Mm-hmm. That's why so many production houses and networks and studios and are looking for content right now, because there isn't anymore. If you look on Netflix and if you were home for the pandemic and you're watching so many shows, and it's not that many more shows that you miss, and they're not adding too many more shows right now. Right. Because they can't shoot anything. So they're hurting. You know, you came in, you signed up, you watched so many things and got so many hours out of it. But now where do they go? Because you can't produce any more content. Mm-hmm. So you're back into a dilemma. Right. So, those are the things, like, where do we go? Because California is already being shut down. So a lot of shows and stuff out there are like on hold. And when they say Biden, when he comes in office, he's going to do a 30-day, which I think 30 days is going to turn to 60 and do a shutdown. And then where do we go from there? We're back, and it's like almost a full year of everybody going in like a pandemic situation, because you'll be back in March. Yeah. How does the United States go from there? Even, matter of fact, I just read the other day that Europe is shutting back down because they have a new strand out there of pandemic. So, over there in Europe, they tape a lot of movies too. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's a tricky balance, and it's a fine line between staying creative, staying productive, staying employed, and then staying safe and staying healthy and all that shit. So it's just a tricky balance, especially those with family and kids and seniors, parents and grandparents, newborn kids. So I think what we are seeing a rise of is, this kind of medium, the podcast, the YouTube, audio thing left and right. Everybody's coming out with a podcast. Yours truly included. Just like, hey, might as well. I agree. And it's a great way. I mean, I tell everybody, if you can come out with a podcast and build your fan base from now until the pandemic slows down, you're going to do exceptionally well. Yeah. So you might as well start it and take it from now. Use this to turn the negative into a positive. Mm-hmm. As they say, take the lemons and turn it into lemonade. Yeah. Yeah. Classic phrase. Yeah. So what's next on the agenda? What's the next set of goals, next set of plans, what's next on the agenda for Rondo Williams, DotyDoeTV Network, Build Your Buzz? Build Your Buzz right now, what we're doing, we're getting ready to do a whole set of contests for the magazine and for the website. I partnered with a couple of other magazines and a couple of other video streaming platforms, and someone who, how do you call him? He helps you get your record on radio and different platforms. And a PR company. So we're getting together. We're going to do a contest and a show on like a Zoom, and we're going to, start reaching for the next big thing. It's like American Idol, but with Zoom. And we're going to have 4 different categories: a rapper, a pop, or just producer, and a DJ.
Okay.
And we're going to go and just look for 4 different, the next big thing, and use all our resources to put them all in different magazines, to put them all on different podcast shows for interviews, to put them all in, if they have music, to put their music on different streaming platforms and radio stations to help them, and, just to do something productive, to stay afloat. That way it helps us online, because now we're bringing so much traffic that advertisers will come to us. Because now that's another thing, advertising, they're holding back spending money now because they're not making it.
Right.
So you have to give them something to make them open up their wallets again. So
and when you say magazine, I mean, today's technology is so different now. Magazines now, it's like almost websites. It's like online magazines.
Yeah, we do.
When you say magazine, do you mean actual like hard copy?
We print up so many. We don't go print crazy like we used to. About 10 years ago, 8 years ago. Now we print up a limited amount, just for people who are in the magazine and different things like that. More so, we do everything digital. So we do it digitally, and we push everything digitally. Mm-hmm. So that's the case. So the subscribers, they just get the magazine emailed right to them.
Yeah. Yeah. When I hear magazine, it's tricky, because I know there's the online magazine and there's newsletters. There's the way websites work now. It's almost like newspaper news, CNN and the Washington Post, and it's all digital now. But I remember
it's
there was
more like blogging. Like the magazines are turning into more like blogs.
Yeah, I remember 30 years ago, there was like 15 different hip hop magazines, 15 different wrestling magazines.
There was nuts, like
there
was goods, women's mag, everything. Now it's like it's scarce.
And I remember skateboarding magazine, Thrasher magazine.
Oh, Thrasher, yeah.
And there was a third skateboarding magazine, but one was just straight up called Skateboarder magazine.
Yeah.
And I think Thrasher has an online presence now. I'm not even sure. I've never even really.
Yeah, Thrasher has an online presence, and their clothes do exceptionally well. They're selling a lot of brand, merchandise.
What were like the top 3 hip hop magazines? There was
the Source, which is Londell. He owns that now.
And Source is still active printing magazine.
Well, yeah, they print, but not as heavy. Which is Londell. He's the Source. Then you had Hip Hop Weekly, which is so that's them. And you had what's that other one?
I know what it was. It was Word Up. Wasn't Word Up?
Oh, Word Up. Yeah, 15. Yeah, Word Up
was that huge?
That was like one of the big ones back in the day. Yeah, definitely Word Up. Yeah.
And they just died off. Internet just started killing them, or they took advantage. They jumped that internet. If they were smart, they jumped that internet bandwagon early.
They're not too much around anymore.
Yeah, probably not Word Up, but yeah, I mean, it's just taking a look at what technology has already offered us and has already evolved. That's where to like keep continuing to push that evolution and that progression and that technological advancement, is because that's where, like you said, who's going to be going out now except for maybe toilet paper and like the bare essentials. No one's going to be going out to get magazines and get what was it, NES Power, like none of those magazines, none of the books. I mean, the Kindle's probably blowing up now. Everyone's just binge reading. things on the Kindle, binge watching things on streaming. They're not going to the theaters for the movies. They're not going to the bookstore for the books. They're not going to the what was it, grocery stores for the magazines or the
the newsstands.
The newsstands, that's what it is. Yeah, the newsstands. I mean, those poor guys out there in those newsstands. I remember, still watching Seinfeld. You get a taste of the past. George and Jerry would go up to those newsstands, and George, I think, made an article, like he made it into a magazine or a newspaper or something. He stood there reading it, and the guy's like, hurry up and buy the newspaper. Don't just say this isn't a library, it's a newsstand. And George is trying to read his own article. He's like, I'm in this. He goes, I don't care, buy it.
Yeah.
But like those poor guys aren't around anymore. I'm sure those newsstands are.
Well, yeah, they used to be all over. Now they're not as relevant. Nobody's selling like newspapers. Everything comes online now.
Yeah.
Not too many places still have the newspaper.
I just read this article. They showed like a graveyard of those newspaper vestibules, the ones you drop 4 quarters in and grab a newspaper out of, and they just show this huge graveyard of all these just demolished or busted up or removed. What were those things called? Those newspaper
I don't remember what they're called, but I know what you're talking about. They were like, you put your money in, it pulls down.
Mm-hmm.
And you get the newspaper out. They used to load them in the mornings. You got to think about those things are gone. Man, wow. Payphones are gone.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things that, from a few years back that people used to, need as necessities and use all the time, every day, are just not here anymore with one device. The cell phone has taken over everything.
Not even the cell phone now. Not even the cell phone. It's like tablets, smartphones, laptops. Like I make more phone calls on a laptop. I make just as many phone calls on a laptop now in the last year than on my smartphone. I make just as many calls.
Well, technically, yeah. I mean, I do the same thing because when you're talking and you're doing a whole lot of conference calls and different things like that, they're more so on your laptop or on your tablet. As far as because you have that streaming, everything. Like I said, it's on the internet. If one thing you don't learn this, the guy from Amazon showed you that if you don't evolve, you're going to lose, because Toys R Us didn't listen.
Yep.
Kmart didn't listen. And those were 2 big chains that lost, because when he came to them first to do it, they just didn't see the vision. And I get it. Sometimes you don't see the vision at first. But
Blockbuster.
Prime example. Blockbuster. What was that other one that was there? You used to go in and put your money in a box and get the DVD out. Redbox. What was the other one? Netflix at first too. You used to get they used to email you the DVD, not email, mail you in the mail the DVDs. My mom still gets the DVDs mailed to her. Bafflingly enough, she still has that part of the package. You get the DVDs mailed to you, and now they, those things have changed tremendously. Yeah. So, if you go back from when they started with VHS tapes and Betamax and different things, and it slowly phased each other out, because back then those tapes were super big and huge and it would take up so much room. Then they went to slim down into CDs and DVDs, and then they had the little small DVDs, and now eventually everything is phased out. There's not even I don't even think you can get cars anymore come with CD players or anything of that nature, do they? No. I just got a relatively new car. I don't think there's a CD player in it. I think my wife has one, and she has a relatively new car. I could be mistaken though. There might not be. I know there's not a CD player in mine. I finally got Bluetooth. I think, but it's also got that USB plug-in. But like the rear view camera is now like standard. I think Bluetooth. I think Bluetooth and the rear view and the backup camera, these are like standard items now. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And you know what's so crazy? I don't even use my backup camera. I'm so used to looking through the mirror, just backing up, and you know the old way. Yeah, just like that. I'm so used to that. And my kids, Daddy, use the camera, because my son drives and my daughter drives, the oldest. And I'm like, I'm just so used to accustomed to doing it that way that I don't even use the backup camera like that. And
Yeah.
it's
generational. It's definitely generational. I mean, like you said, if you don't evolve, if you don't, kind of stay with the times, you're going to perish, or you're going to fade away. And my mom's computer, my mom is such a, not a progressive, but a regressive, that her computer, and, God bless her. My stepdad, he's maybe 5, I think he's 5 or 10 years older than her. They hit something on that computer that they can't see the normal view. They see like the task view. It's a Windows, so they see like the task view. I don't know. I don't even want to mess with this computer to try to figure it out. But so now I just said, forget it. Called up my brother. I said, listen, for Christmas, we're getting my mom an iPad. We got to get her an iPad. It has to be an iPad. It has to be Apple. It has to be Mac, Apple product. It has to be an iPad. Super simple. I don't want to call her, I don't want to call her a dummy, but it's got to be the most dummy-proof product. She turns it on. It walks her through step by step. Asks her, what do you want to do with this product? FaceTime with people, video chat with people.
Yeah.
And
you look at it like that, but because I know about giving my mother the cell phone and telling her to FaceTime and using the tablet is like, all right, it's crazy. Yeah, right. Now, I have a small daughter and my granddaughter. They can use an iPhone already, like it's nothing.
Right.
Like it's just the times that you grow up in. For them, it's natural to be able to use electronics, as opposed to from their era, they didn't have anything to work with, so it's like foreign.
Right.
So, it's just the gaps and the errors. Even for us, it's harder, even though we know how to work them and work the functionalities. But these kids learn this stuff faster than we do.
Yeah, we got my kid a freaking like a kitty cell phone and a kitty remote. It's like it plays music. It's got buttons, and he's like hitting all these buttons. He's like making fake phone calls, and he's not even a year old, and it's got like this little swipe button. It's got those little fake swipe button on it, and he's hitting everything. He's holding it. He's looking at it, and I guess he's imagining changing the channels. He's imagining making a phone call to somebody, imaginary friend.
They're just born to adapt to it. It's like, I don't know what it is. They are born to adapt to it. Like, it's just what it is.
Yeah. And I still have a VCR, and, I have one of those Fiverr businesses of trying to digitize people VHS, and not making too much money from it because, I don't know, they don't want to ship it and whatever, but we, hasn't been too successful just yet. But I have the VCR, I have the adapter to jack in the VCR to the computer and digitize VHSs. Okay. But it's so fun to still go back to like these VHSs and remember, like, that's right, they had to put like these a minute 30 seconds of header and 30 seconds of tail.
Hell yeah.
On some of these VHSs of like the title and the runtime and like the whole script and the whole transcript, not transcript, but like the whole breakdown of what's on these tapes, some of these corporate tapes. It's really trippy to like kind of go back and check out some of these old school things.
Wow.
But cool. So we discussed a little bit of what this new normal and like progressing and stuff like that. If there was one point you'd want to make, one bit of advice, kind of considering this hybrid new normal, what would that be?
Well, if I'm giving something to somebody and it's far, or I'm giving some advice to someone in our age group, because some of us still are stuck in the times. And I noticed that with a lot of people that I do business with, they still do things in their old format and can't get used to the new format. Is you have to evolve. If you want to grow in anything that you do, this pandemic is just showing you that you have to evolve, because growth is what takes you to the next level in everything from life. As you're not doing the same thing as you did. You grew from your 20s to your 30s. You grew from your teens to your 20s. So growth in everything, you evolve every facet of your life. So with everything that you do, you have to evolve and you have to grow. Because where was I? I was talking to my dad, and I was telling him that I have, for my Samsung, I can control my TVs, because Samsung TVs. Mm-hmm. I can control my washing machine and dryer because it's a Samsung. And he was like, "Oh no, it's out of the question." And I'm like, "Dad, eventually, there's smart houses where you can turn your faucet on, you can turn the lights on just by your voice and different things." He just, people just don't want to evolve and do that, to do those things. And elevation is, you just have to get with the times. Sometimes, and I'm not a big social media type of person or anything like that, but as far as doing sales and marketing and anything that has to do with your business wise, you have to be on those platforms. And if you grew up in the 80s or even 90s or anything to those facets, you're not a heavy social media person. You're not heavy cell phone. You're not heavy picture. With everything that these younger generations are doing, and you watch them, the millennials, how they're succeeding is because they use and they evolve and they change with social media. They use these platforms to take them to the next level. They have no type of experience of anything of what they're doing. They just have that wherewithal how to make the social media work for them.
Yeah.
How to make this new day age work for them. Because a lot of these young kids are making so much money off of the littlest things, and things go viral that we don't take control and use as the older generation. So my advice is to get with the times, learn these things and do it, and succeed. With this pandemic, it's not, for me, it's how you come out of it. You have to use this time to come out with something to show you that, all right, this hurt us in this pandemic. Now we have to adapt and adjust. It's how you come out of it. This change has to come, and it's showing you that change has to come. There's different things. There's a lot of companies, businesses, restaurants, everything that are shutting down because of this pandemic. So it's how do you come out of it? Right. You have to use time, and nothing is foolproof. Nothing. There's always going to be something different that hinders you, but it's how do you come out of it? You have to work to where these things don't happen to you as much, or it can hurt you as much as it did to the economy and everybody else this way again. So that's what it is. Evolve with the times and analyze what you're doing, and it's how do you come out of this, and how can you use these things and these tools that are coming out to your advantage.
Yeah, absolutely. And to touch upon that, I've actually been been doing pretty well during this quarantine. Before, the goals were always film and TV production, acting, big, your general stereotypical productions of film and TV, action Absolutely. Movies, dramas, movies in the theaters, TV shows on TV. And then as things progress, it's like, listen, out of the fucking gate, no one's going to buy my script. You have to produce a short. You might have to produce a teaser, put it on YouTube. You got to put it on social media. You have to blast it out this way. You got to experiment and think outside the box and play with other mediums here and there. And even more so, having a full-time career, being a full-time freelance professional in film and TV, you also have to dabble in audio video, which got me into live streaming. And I looked at that. So, and because the classic mindset is, let's take most actors, right? Mm-hmm. They're gonna have a fallback. What's your fallback as an actor? Bartender, waiter or waitress, bartender, real estate agent, car salesman,
Most
And
of them,
and if you have a fallback, what usually happens is that you fall back. But my goal always was, okay, I'll have a fallback, but that fallback will still remain within that arena, within that universe of audio, video, film, and
what you
TV,
wanted to do.
mics, lights, cameras, whatever.
Well, for me, my main objective, like I tell everybody, they asked me. I remember I just did an interview, I think a couple of months ago, and they said, "Did you ever have a plan B?" I said, "I don't do plan Bs, because when I set up a plan B, that means I'm thinking that I'm going to fail in my plan A.
Right.
So I may not go that straight path in the plan A. So my plan B is to make this left on the same path that I'm going, then make a right, then make another right, and then make that left to stay back on my straight path.
Right.
It may not be, there's obstacles there, but you stay on the path to what you want to do, and eventually you're going to get it. You know, there's diversions, there's everything you got to jump over, there's a wall, go around it, go through it. But as long as you stay consistent to what you're doing, and you'll make it. That's why I don't do plan Bs. Everything is a plan A. And if this happens, we go left. If that happens, we go right. But we divert. Everything stays with the plan A.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, you know, like you said, no one foresaw this pandemic, this quarantine, this, you know, 3, 6 to maybe even 12-month lockdown. But because I dabbled in other things, experimented, you know, thought outside the box.
Absolutely.
Played with this, you know, had to, like, you know, do some corporate industrial stuff that's boring as hell. Not my taste, not my forte for the long run, but I dabbled in this. Now I have a little bit of expertise. I can maybe do this podcast. And this podcast is just a way of, you know, staying productive, staying creative, staying active.
Relevancy, yeah. Productive.
Staying relative, networking.
Exactly.
You know, had I sent you an email on LinkedIn, you know, three years ago saying like, hey, you want to collaborate on something, your response would have been like, on what? But now it's like, hey, listen, I got a podcast. Some people are watching it. You want to jump on? And you're like, well, what the hell, right?
Yeah.
You know, what else is going on? And that's what I just did with everybody. And, you know, spamming the hell out of LinkedIn, because the worst thing that someone's going to tell me is no.
Absolutely.
That's the worst thing is someone's going to tell me no, but more people said yes than no. And now it's networking. And so now that you're on my podcast, you're definitely going to want to check out my YouTube and see what else is on there, because you're on this show on my YouTube, on my channel. And I'm since you're a guest, I'm looking at your stuff, and now there's that networking. Now there's that, you know, minimal collaboration now. Who's to say what's to come forth just from you and I collaborating on this podcast? Who's to say what's to come forth from that 2-3 years in the future?
Absolutely.
I saw your stuff. Definitely want to get involved in your stuff. You might want to get involved in some of the other things I got going on. And there's that networking. And then you might say, hey, there's a couple of the artists I want to, you know, get on your podcast. Of course, I'm going to say yes. The more guests, the more podcast episodes, the more relevancy, the more viewership.
Absolutely. That's the way to do it, because it's like you said, everything is about networking. Everything that you do, you have to be a network, especially if you're your own business person. You have the opportunities, and I don't call it luck. I call everything timing, because I don't believe in luck. I believe in timing. Just like now, like you said, there's people I've met 5 years ago, and I'm like, man, I can't do nothing with them right at the moment. But, you know, we stay in touch every now and again, once a year, twice a year. Hey, how you doing? And now, boom. Oh, shoot. You know what? We're in the pandemic. They do this. I do this. Let's put this together. Now we can work.
Right.
And that's what it is. So it's timing. Everything to me is it's timing. You know, it may not work when you meet that person. You can't use it then, but, you know, it's timing, and it's networking. So
yeah, I mean, my wife's a big believer in that, you know, if it's meant to be type of mentality, and I have to respect that. But at the same time, there are things that I will make for myself.
Oh yeah.
And so there's that fine balance.
That's still not luck, though. That's not luck. You did it for yourself. So that's why I say it's not luck.
But you know, like if we're supposed to film and all of a sudden it's a snow blizzard, it wasn't meant to be. All right, fine. We have to we'll reschedule. We're going to get this knocked out. We're going to do our best. We're going to keep persevering. We're going to keep pushing through. Quarantine. All right, fine. We're going to do everything on Zoom instead of like in the studio. We're just gonna do a podcast on Zoom. All right, there's a quarantine, no problem. I'll just have everybody do all their voiceovers on their phone, on some decent equipment at home, and they'll send me the MP3s. There's always a workaround, and it's about not losing faith, but like there's all sorts of elements, evolving, thinking outside the box, persevering, accepting. What's that famous phrase? Give me the strength to accept the things I can't control, and the guidance to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Right? I know I totally biffed that. It's a famous phrase. I know I totally.
No, I know exactly what you mean. I don't know it word for word, but
yeah,
I get the gist. I know exactly what the phrase is.
But it's like, you know, also just thinking outside the box. And I even had a previous guest on here. Biggest complaint was like, you know, Zoom audio sucks. You know, everyone's doing Zoom, but Zoom audio sucks. And there's trying to get them to like accept adding on these different equipments to make the audio better. And I'm like, yeah, but also here's the thing. The products we put out now are a staple of that time. You know what I mean? 1930s, 1940s, 1950s, films were black and white.
Yeah.
And then they started getting color film. They started coming out with colored movies, but Hitchcock stuck with a black and white for Psycho. And so that's kind of like that artistic choice then. But then in the 60s and 70s, with colored film and cheaper film stocks, an influx of equipment and cheaper equipment, people started banging movies out in the 60s and 70s. A lot of those B movies, a lot of those grindhouse movies in the 60s and 70s. But you can tell by that quality and by the look of it, it was a staple of the time. And then in the 80s, bigger budgeted, more neon, more neo future noir type things started coming out. It's a staple of its time. And then the 90s, more grittier indie films were coming out again, like, you know, Tarantino's and Rodriguez's and Swingers. I'm a big fan of Swingers. Those were a staple of the time, where it was more grittier indie films of the 90s. And then 2000s had its found footage. All of a sudden, Blair Witch makes a found footage it was like the original. And then all of a sudden found footage films are like popping up left and right. But that's a staple of the time. And now you have a lot of product, especially, podcasts and talk shows are doing Zoom virtual stuff and remote stuff, podcasts, all these conventions. We're looking back on that 10 years in the future. We're going to look back on this and be like, that's right, man. We still stayed productive. We still stayed active in a shitty ass time.
Yeah.
But man, it was so fun. Remember when I met Rondo and I met, this other filmmaker and this other musician. And then 5 years after that podcast, we got together, we made this, we made that, we made the other thing because we met on the podcast, that shitty looking podcast in 2020 and that shitty quarantine in 2020. But it wasn't a shitty podcast in such a sense of its content and our sharing of ideas. It still would have been the same kind of conversation and cross promotion, sharing of ideas, just shooting the shit, whether you were here physically in a studio sitting across from me or on Zoom. But the fact that it's like this, it's a staple of its time. It's kind of like, it's kind of like a little stamp, this was done during that crazy time. We still did it. We still got together. We still networked. We still made it happen. We, like in my case, still started a podcast, networked and shared ideas with all these amazing artists and producers and filmmakers and actors and musicians during a really shitty, troubling, tough time. I mean, my wife's putting up with it. Me and her, we got to juggle all these different responsibilities around the house with the kid and
that homeschooling.
Yeah. And she's a teacher. So she's a third grade teacher. She's Zoom teaching. And so, we're bouncing.
She needs a raise. She needs a raise.
Yeah, she does need a raise. Come on, get us some more money over here. Well, Rondo, listen, I can't thank you enough for coming on and great advice, great ideas. I'm continuing to be inspired. Any any plugs, links, socials you want to put out there?
Well, yeah, just follow us at DotyDoeTV Network on all platforms, Instagram, Twitter, everything. DotyDoeTV Network, LinkedIn. Build your buzz on all platforms. Those are the links I have. Right. Oh, buzz your brand. You need a website. You need an app built. We can do that. Those things, and I thank you for having me and the opportunity to be on your platform. And any way I can support your cause and what you're doing, just let me know. I got you.
Absolutely, man. Well, Rondo Williams, can't thank you enough for coming on. Learned a lot. It was great exchange of ideas. And like I said, I'm continuing to be inspired by you and everyone else that comes on here and to stay productive, to stay motivated and creating whatever, doesn't matter, but just stay creative,
That's it.
Well, awesome, man. Well, absolutely. Ron, can't thank you enough for coming on. To my viewers, I hope I've earned the privilege of your time and viewership. I know my guest has. And until next time, you know what to do.
All right. Thank you, Glenn. All right. Have a good day.